and welcome to another video. I am Simply G, and today I'm going to show off all of the manga and everything else, novels, comics, blah blah blah, that I got for this month of May. And there's a lot. I didn't want there to be a lot, but a couple things came in that I was kind of not expecting, so it did boost numbers. But yeah, so rather than spend too long on this intro, I'll get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. First up, we have some merchandise. This is actually for the novel slash franchise Modao Zushi, or the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. This is the, I think, limited edition version. It's not the deluxe edition, that came with like something else, but this is the New Year's figure set of our main character Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji. This rabbit could sit up with two little bunnies. It's very New Year's themed with lantern and the dancing lion and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of this franchise. I don't really make any secret of that. I have enjoyed all of MXTX's works that I've seen, the various like donghua adaptations and comic adaptations and live action versions and the novels. I know there's some controversy surrounding, various parts, not necessarily from the Danmai fans or the original series, but more so with how the English release is being handled. And I don't want to really speak to any of that, especially considering the current state of Seven Seas as a publisher, and their ongoing union, conversations maybe. But, aside from all of that stuff happening within the English market, I am a fan of the series as a whole, and this little figure set was quite affordable. Especially, like, Chinese figures can be a lot cheaper than Japanese, or at least they're kind of to the same expense that Japanese figures used to be before inflation hit, I guess. So yeah, I really think these two are adorable. I don't have any merchandise, or at least no like figure type of merchandise for these two yet, so it was kind of a no-brainer. I do have some other merchandise relating. Wait, do I have anything relating to Modao Sushi? Maybe not. Maybe all my other figure merchandise is related to Heaven Official's Blessing. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. These two are adorable. Really sweet little release, and there's plenty of quite affordable Chinese figures coming out from various Chinese companies for all the different, well, really this franchise and Heaven Official's Blessing for those who are interested. The only other thing I can think of is the Wei Wuxian scale figure, which Good Smile is putting out. But yeah, regardless, adorable. Really happy to have them. It came with this acrylic background as part of the limited edition. It also has a really fancy box because China has no chill. And yeah, it's nice. I'm really happy to have them. They're so cute. And now I'm just trying to have to figure out where the hell I'm gonna put it. Where am I gonna put this? I don't know. I don't know. Speaking of MXTX merch, coincidentally, the other merch that I got this month. So I actually had help purchasing this from my Twitter mutual friend, Rin, at Rin Reads Manga on Twitter. She's fantastic. great person. Love chatting to her, but there was some kind of promotional sale going on at like in a local bookstore or comic store or whatever, that she had bought like duplicates, extras of things accidentally, and asked if I would want them. Me, of course, yes. Unfortunately, it ended up being quite expensive just with shipping from Vietnam, because the international postage situation isn't fabulous right now. But I am super, super grateful that she helped walk me through that whole process, that she did think of me and offered such wonderful little things for me at no like cost for the items, just postage cost. And so, and plus a whole bunch of like extras and things like that. So the thing that I was actually, supposed to get, or that I was saying like, oh yeah, I'll take your extra of that, was this Heaven Official Blessing New Year's acrylic stand. It's the first acrylic stand I have of, I think, any MXTX series, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it came with a whole bunch of extras, but most notably was this, if I could open it, I did have this open before, there we go. I don't know if this actually came with this acrylic stand, but it might just be a retailer bonus. This beautiful poster with all three of the main MXTX couples. So that's really lovely. I'll have to find somewhere to put that. And then very, very kindly, I also got I think the other thing that it came with was this little envelope, which has a postcard in it of said acrylic stand illustration. But in my package, which was honestly packed so well, I joked with her that like a bomb could have gone off and it would have survived. It was a lot of styrofoam and extra packaging just to protect the items, which was very kind. I think another thing that this acrylic stand came with was this button. So this is just pretty typical, again with that same illustration. And I also got this bag of goodies, which very kindly has a note on there. And inside, oh my goodness, there's so much. So there's a couple bookmarks. There's one for Horimiya, I guess from a retailer, like at the general retailer. There's a couple Modao Zushi ones, double-sided. There's a couple Sword Art Online bookmarks as well, which are cute. This Sao postcard and this Modao Zushi postcard, which I will also use as bookmarks, just by the way. We have this little, I think, Zishen, some kind of little acrylic card. I don't really know what this is. It's cute. And then we have some Haikyuu, I guess some sort of trading card game. So that was a fun little addition. And then this Barakamon little cutout. Again, I'll probably use all of these for bookmarks. And then I also have two little Kiki keychains. I will definitely be putting one of these on my car keys. I'm probably this one. I don't know quite yet. And also a lanyard with Modao Zushi. Well, more specifically, Cloud Recess's LAN stylings. It's actually a pretty good one. The loop seems very strong. It's not going to fall apart super quickly. And I was actually thinking about needing a new lanyard. And normally I complain about this sort of stuff, but this is actually really helpful. So yeah, that was a bunch of like cool little fun extras that came with it. I also, this envelope came in a plastic bag with this cutest little sticker. I unfortunately had to actually break it to get it open, but oh, it's so sweet. But yeah, that was all of this like huge. It really was kind of one or two items that I was expecting from this parcel, and I ended up getting a whole bunch of really kind extras. It was very generous of Rin and the seller who coordinated this whole thing. So I'm very happy and very, very grateful. And yeah, I'm really happy that I was able to get this acrylic stand, because this isn't the sort of thing that I necessarily go out of my way to purchase from like non-local merchandise stores, things like that. So I probably wouldn't have had another opportunity to get it if I was wanting it. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily the most painless process, but it all worked out in the end. And it was just a really a big surprise when I got this very large package in the mail as well, because I was like, I don't even know what this is meant to be. And then I opened it up and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's all my stuff. So yeah, I'll have to find somewhere to display this acrylic stand as well. Too much stuff, not enough space, as per always. I have some art books. The first one is the third and presumably final of this set of art books, and this is from Fruits Basket. This is the third collection of like Twitter illustrations that Natsuki Takaya did during the adaptation, like the anime release of Fruits Basket. Why did my brain blank on the name there? I don't know. Really sweet, lovely. It's always nice to have new illustrations, new artwork from such a beloved series, especially with this new adaptation. I have the previous two. The first one had Toru on it, the second one had Yuki, so understandably this third one has Kyo. They're very cheap. I think you can still get them fairly readily. I've just bought them as they were released, and yeah, I encourage you to pick them up if you're a Natsuki Takaya fan and you love Fruits Basket and you want more lovely artwork of Fruits Basket. We have the second art book of Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, which is great because I love the artwork from Hanako-kun. It's so lovely. I'm a huge fan of this manga. The color pages are always a treat in the manga, and I have the first one, knew I had to get the second one. I'm sure there will be more, as this is an ongoing series, if I wasn't dropping it everywhere. But oh my gosh, guys, yeah, really nice to have two art books this month, because it feels like it's been a while since I've gotten an art book. And that's probably going to change because I just ordered another one, but that's not coming till later in the year, so I have time. But yeah, really happy to see the second art book for this series follow so quickly after the first, and I'm pretty sure the first one got a Yen Press, like, English release, so maybe this one will too. I'm just not patient enough for that, so I almost always buy the Japanese versions of art books. But yeah, I hope whichever version you get, people will pick this one up and enjoy it. Onto the manga, we have a couple one-shots or like single volume releases, so I'll start with those. The first one is actually a release from the Bubbles zine publications. Those who've watched the channel for a long time know that I, on a somewhat regular basis, buy the Bubbles zine, which is always really interesting and informative. But this is one of their actual publications of a book. They've had some previously, but this is Inoue Kazuo's Bat Kid. It also has an essay from Ryan Holmberg, but this is, Bat Kid is kind of the first baseball manga ever. It started in 1947 and ran until 1949, and basically was the starting point for baseball in manga. It's not, overly complicated. It's quite like a newspaper comic, which is what it was, and just happened to focus on baseball, which nowadays, for those who follow baseball or follow manga, and especially sports manga, is kind of foundational to a lot of sports series. A lot of baseball is just part of the Japanese culture now, and it's really fun to see how, like, where it started. So the first half is the comic itself, and then the back half of this book is actually an essay by Ryan Holmberg about Bat Kid and its influence and popularity, and again, the reflection of Bat Kid in Japan and what it meant and what it was emblematic of at the time, and I guess also now. Obviously, this isn't a recommendation of a book for everyone, but it's a really interesting little piece of history. It's well worth the read, especially if you're interested in kind of more classic manga, and if you're interested in how some of the familiar or expected genres of manga came to be, like where they got started. It's good and it's fun, and it's a really good look into how manga as comics have evolved over the last century. It's sort of like reading old Peanuts comics or something of that equivalence. It's very good, and definitely worth the read if you're interested in kind of the historical impact of manga. Next, we have a book that I was highly anticipating, super excited for when this was released, and I had pre-ordered it, so I got it as soon as really possible. But this is Witches by Daisuke Igarashi. This is the complete collection. I think it's 2 volumes in one. And this is a collection of, I want to say, like, short stories about various witches from various cultures. They're all kind of have different vibes. There's nothing really classically like a Halloween witch in this. It's mostly this kind of ethereal woman who knows, secrets of the land and nature and the universe, which is really cool. I definitely vibe with that. Not all of them are good people. Some of them make some pretty terrible mistakes or make some pretty terrible decisions, but I think that just highlights how witches, although having kind of this unlimited power maybe, or this unlimited insight to the universe, doesn't always, they're still fundamentally human, and so can be very much influenced by, emotional longing and emotional decision making. But like with everything Daisuke Igarashi, this was just phenomenal. I love this book so much. The various stories are captivating. They're all very different from each other. I loved the different settings and cultures being reflected, and the different problems that all of these witches were kind of facing and having to solve. It's so good. It like with Igarashi's other kind of main manga that we've gotten in English, Children of the Sea. It reminds me a lot of that, the various kind of story interludes of various folk tales about the ocean and creation stories and things that were interwoven into the larger plot in that. Igarashi is so good at telling such a rich story in a short amount of time, and I loved it. This was a highly anticipated release for me, and I just cannot get enough. It was so good, and I can't wait to reread it. I really recommend this book to people who are into, especially like literary comics, things that don't necessarily have to have a conventional plot line, or for those who are really into kind of short story collections. It's really good. It's really, really good. Is a Yuri manga, and normally I would leave this towards kind of the end, but it is also a single volume that I got and really enjoyed, and I think has really broad appeal. This is Mizuno and Chayama by Yuta Nishio. This is the story of two high school girls, Mizuno and Chayama, understandably, who are, their families are kind of on the opposite side of this political war. One, her father is trying to get reelected as mayor, or is trying to get elected as mayor, and then the other is, her family runs like a tea company, and they're at odds. And so these two have this friendship relationship, obviously develops into like this romantic relationship, despite, their families being at odds and them getting caught up in this situation that they really didn't have any choice in, and as well as kind of the everyday struggles of teens, especially those who are somewhat thrust into notoriety because of their family, and the stifling nature that can have, the expectations that brings. Oh, it's really good. It's quite dark. There's a lot of, this isn't a sweet, like, everything's happiness and sunshine type of Yuri. These girls really have a lot of problems in their lives, a lot of things they have to overcome, and a lot of situations that they have to face in order to not only be happy with themselves, but secure in their relationship or confident in their relationship. It's very, very good. I really like the art style in this one. I appreciate the kind of tone that this manga has. The art can really bounce between some goofy expressions and some really captivatingly heart-wrenching ones, and I think it balances all of the various atmospheres that it has very, very well. I really enjoy this series a lot, and I think that if you are a fan of Yuri, for me it's a must read. I think it's really, really good. But if you are just looking for, the saccharine, everyone's happy, there's no conflict, we all live happily ever after type of Yuri, which is fine, like that's valid, then this isn't gonna be that. It's more in line with something like Whispered Words, maybe, or Sweet Blue Flowers, or I'm trying to think of some of the more dramatic, even something like oh my gosh, my dearest Marika, is that what it's called? My dear Mariko, whatever, that one. Um, it it's good. It's really good, and I'm really happy that Yen Press decided to release this one. Next, before I get into the debut volumes, I also got a complete series this month. One that I'm very happy to have gotten. I had read one of these volumes prior, but had just never made the jump to getting the series itself. And then when they announced a reprint, I decided to pre-order it. So I've been waiting for that. It was recently released, shipped to me at great expense. But now I have it and I'm happy. And this is Arya, the Masterpiece Collection by Kazue Amano from Tokyo Pop. This first volume, all of these are 2-in-1s. So this first volume is actually the Aqua prequel, as the series had kind of a soft reboot when it changed magazines. And this is a very, very popular isekai story about a girl who is training to become a gondolier on Mars. No spider, I don't want you in there. So there is 7 volumes in all, collecting the 14 single volumes. Tokyo Pop previously tried to release the series in singles way back in the day prior to their, I guess, I don't want to say bankruptcy. Hibernation is maybe the better word. And this is I haven't seen the anime of this. I'm very behind on kind of this hugely popular series, especially for isekai slice of life fans. But I do really enjoy this genre. I am very intrigued in this setting. I did really like what I had read of the Aqua storyline, this first volume. So I decided to get them sooner rather than later, especially as it really is, from my understanding, the last opportunity fans would have, or people would have, to be able to buy the series. So yeah, I've gotten, that's volume 4, volume 5, volume 6, and last but not least, volume 7. So yeah, this is a far-flung future wherein humanity has terraformed Mars and now it's covered in water, so it's very much like the city of Venice, and therefore transportation via gondola rather than taxi or something is a very in-demand industry. And our main character, Arya, has come to Mars to train as a gondolier. Yeah. I can't really speak to anything else aside from that, but I'm looking forward to diving into this. If I do enjoy it, I am hoping to watch the anime at some point, and I'm sure I will enjoy. Now, on to the debut volumes. The first one is one that I was really looking forward to. It's from a creator who I have enjoyed their previous work. I've kind of been following this one. I haven't read it or anything. I mean, I've read this volume, but I haven't read any of scans or anything of this. But I've been following it since this creator has started it. I actually have the second volume in Japanese, as I have that personally signed, autographed, and illustrated by the creator. which is super awesome. But this is I guess it's a Kodansha book. It's under the vertical label, I guess. But this is Blackguard by Ryo Hanada. This is a 5-volume sci-fi about a future wherein there's like this disease. I don't really know how to describe it. I want to say it's like a monkey disease. It's weird. I guess it's like a pandemic wherein a zombie-like monkey virus, when you get infected, then you become, this rabid monster called a shoujo. And there is this elite force that goes out and, tries to protect the last remnants of humanity. There's been all sorts of issues over the last, however long it's been since this outbreak happened. But our main character, this guy here, is Minami. Yeah, this guy Minami is regarded as like one of the best. He fights all of these monsters just with a katana, and he stands out because he wears all black, where all the rest of this force wears white in order to hide amidst this like fog or whatever that's going on. But Minami has no like self preservation. He has this, it's weird to describe because he has this, I guess, inflicted discare for his own survival, so he just doesn't care. I don't want to say he's suicidal, but that's basically what he is. He just doesn't care. But because he's like such a good, awesome fighter, the people in power don't want him to die. So they've paired him up with this other very high performing individual called Chris, who's now his partner, but also I guess is introducing Minami to kind of the joys in life. I don't really know the direction that this is going in, but I do enjoy Devil's Line, and I think it's an interesting premise. It's a pretty interesting world so far, and this first volume was good, so at 5 volumes, I am, I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready to have this ride, this weird thing, and I already really enjoy kind of the dynamic between Chris and Minami. I think there's a lot going on there. Like with Devil's Line, I'm not going to say that Hanada is the best artist of all time, because I don't think they are. But I think writing-wise, at least for Devil's Line, was strong enough that it was fine, is serviceable, that I didn't really notice too much wonk regarding the artwork over the course of the series. And I hope that Blackguard's the same. It's hard to really tell from the first volume, but I did enjoy it, and I look forward to the rest of it. Next, we have the other debut from this month, and oh my god, this is such my shit. So I read this immediately, and I'm really looking forward to the rest. I think this is a 3-volume series, complete in Japan. This is Lost Lad London by Shima Shinya, put out by Yen Press. Okay guys, longtime viewers know that I'm a big murder mystery fan. I'm a big, like, British murder mystery fan. I think they do it the best. I grew up on Poirot and Miss Marple and, various British murder mysteries, so it's kind of foundational to my tastes, and this is exactly that, right? This is just exactly that. This is the story of a university student in London called Al, who he kind of unknowingly is on the underground, the tube the same time that the mayor of London is stabbed and killed. And so he gets kind of caught up in this. Well, he doesn't really know because he didn't witness anything. He was a bit distracted, didn't really pay any attention to what was going on around him. He's a very, I want to say almost perfunctory person. His friends make the joke that, like, you can buy his friendship. He's very focused on money because he wants to be able to pay off his student loans and, you know, prepare for the future and all of that. Anyway, so the murder of the mayor of London happens, and he finds out that he just kind of coincidentally was there at the time, and he's approached by this grizzled police officer who is kind of following up on people who may have been witnesses the day of. And at sort of just prior to this, Al discovers a knife in the pocket of the jacket that he was wearing, covered in blood. So, you know, that's not good. And he's like, well, I certainly didn't kill the mayor, but this looks like a murder weapon, and I have no idea how that got in there. And so this police officer is like, oh, well, do you think your flatmate was responsible for this? You know, is there anything weird going on? He's like, no, like, my life is really normal. I'm just, you know, a university student. My flatmate's a really good guy. You know, we don't have any issues. He seems like really lovely, and he wouldn't be trying to frame me for murder. Callum's a cool guy. And then, unfortunately, Callum gets killed because he kind of unwittingly was involved in this whole situation. So it becomes somewhat obvious. So basically, Al tells this police officer that he's discovered this murder weapon or this knife at least, in the pocket initially. And he says, like, this doesn't look good for you, but because of this policeman, he'd previously had a case where someone was falsely accused and then commit suicide due to that. He doesn't want a repeat of that, and he can recognize that because this kid, Al, is like not white, he's a minority, that this could have the potential of being a really politically charged event. Racism in England, oh man, yeah. And so he kind of decides to collaborate with this uni student in order to find the real reason that any of this is happening. And over the course of this first volume, we slowly discover that maybe Al does, as an adopted kid, maybe he does have closer ties to this whole situation than he thought, and there probably is someone trying to frame him for the murder of the mayor, to which he, like, has no real idea as to why anyone would do that, because he never knew the mayor, he doesn't have any relationship with him. It's, oh my god, this is so my shit. I love it so much. And I think 3 volumes is probably perfect for this kind of story. It gives enough time to build up the mystery, but also not too long that it drags it out. I think that Shima Shinya really captures modern Britain really well, and kind of the charged political climate and racial tensions. I really appreciate that although it's set in London, both main characters are minorities, because obviously, like, a lot of Japanese manga and media sees England and America and, you know, non-Japanese places or Western countries as, like, very white. And there are white characters in this, obviously, because there's a lot of white people in England, but there's also a lot of other racially diverse people that it's really cool to see that being reflected and also being kind of a fundamental part of this story. It makes me think, and I don't know a lot about Shima Shinya, but it makes me think that they have probably some experience living in another country, especially probably Britain. Yeah, it's cool. I really, really, really liked this a lot. Yeah, I think Al's a really like down to earth, pretty understandable, stereotypical uni, probably 19, 21-year-old. Um just a normal kid who's just, he's got his little personal quirks, but he's not, overly moralistic or like super unrealistically positive or anything. Like, he's just a normal guy just trying to live his life, and he doesn't have any real drama over his situation. He knows that he's been adopted his whole life because he is very obviously, they say South Asian, which is presumably probably like Indian or Sri Lankan, whereas his parents are, well, his mother, at least his adoptive mother, is white. So there's no like real drama about that. And then I don't know, there's something really nice about the natural just acceptedness of this series actually feeling like it exists in modern day London. Which is maybe a weird thing to say, but it's refreshing. It's just really refreshing. I also just love the art style in this series. I think it's fantastic, and it reminds me a lot of like Natsume Ono style of character design. And it also, just reading it, reminds me a lot of like Western comics, Western like web comics especially. It reminds me of a British like boys love or like male like MLM story that I follow. It in its setting and how its characters act and feel like real British teens or young people. And I appreciate, like, I'm in saying that I like murder mystery, I'm aware of like all of the propaganda that happens in these sorts of things, and I'm not one to be like, oh, the police are fabulous. I don't believe that. I like, obviously, or maybe that should be obvious. Maybe it's not, but I have no love for the police. But I do like stories about like grizzled old detectives who are just like trying to do their last job before retirement, or like trying to make up for something that happened. A Touch of Frost. I grew up watching so much of A Touch of Frost, and again like Poirot and those sorts of things. I don't know. It just is something that, although I recognize the problematic aspects, I also just like it. And yeah, I don't know. I like both of these characters. I think the mystery has been pretty well set up. I have kind of suspicions already of like who may be responsible for this whole thing. And I think that maybe, as someone who has read a lot of mystery, maybe I'll be able to guess this pretty quickly, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to read it, and I'm actually looking really forward to it because this is really, really good. And if you like murder mystery, or just like mystery in general, if you like manga that isn't just set in Japan or like a fantasy world, then check this one out. If you like kind of European comics, check this one out. It's good. I liked it a lot, and I cannot wait for the rest of it. I know I said it with the last one, but this was so good. On to the ongoing manga. And the first one is the most recent volume of the Full Metal edition of Full Metal Alchemist. This is volume 16 out of 18, so we are getting close to the end in regards to this, I guess, modern classic shonen. I say that. It ended in 2010, 2009, something like that. So it's been over a decade since it ended, but honestly, I adore this series. A lot of people adore this series. The manga's a great time. It really still holds up. I think it's good in all of the classic shonen ways, but it's also good just as the story that it is. I think it has a lot of heart. I think it recognizes the nuance of a lot of the situations it introduces. The characters are great, diverse, interesting, typically well-meaning. The villains are also like pretty interesting and nuanced. It's just overall a really fun, good time, and I would argue, obviously I'm biased because I am a huge Full Metal Alchemist fan. I always have been. It's quite foundational to my whole like anime and manga experience. But I legitimately think it's just one of the better comics, especially shonen comics out there. It's just really, really good, and I've enjoyed the rest of Arakawa's, at least original works. I don't dislike any of her adaptations, but I think that like this and Silver Spoon are really just, they reflect a personality that has a lot of care and just a lot of care and want for positive change and awareness. An awareness of like being proactive and doing good in the world and trying your best even if it doesn't feel like a lot. And yeah, it's just an all-around good time. I think it's well worth the read if you haven't read it. If you've only watched the anime, check out the manga because it's really good. If you've never watched the anime, check out both because they're both good in different and unique ways. Yeah, Full Metal Alchemist is really, really good, and I can't wait for the rest of the Full Metal editions to be released. We have Volume 5 of My Dress Up Darling by Shinichi Fukura, a series that saw a really recent boost in popularity thanks to the anime adaptation. Haven't watched it, don't know how good it is. Assume, like, everyone I know who's seen it has liked it, so I assume it's good. But I really enjoy this manga. It's stinking cute. It is, like, it does tend to lean on the side of fan service. But I think the relationship between Gojo and Marin is really lovely. I think it's really realistic for, teens trying to figure shit out and their feelings for each other. This is a story about a girl who really likes to cosplay or wants to cosplay but just doesn't have any real sewing skills, and a boy who works at a Hinadol home, and who loves making Hinadolls but isn't particularly good at painting their faces. He's very shy, withdrawn, and after kind of coincidentally running into each other, he agrees to help her with her cosplay, and therefore they become friends. And over the course of their friendship, feelings have blossomed, and it's really cute. And again, I think it's very realistic for just kind of teen interest and attraction. This volume gets a little bit risky. I mean, as I said, there's always fan service in this series, but like the two characters kind of accidentally book a love hotel for a photo shoot and end up in a position that's probably not unusual for a love hotel, but that they weren't really expecting to be in. And we know that Marin is just like smitten for Gojo. She's just like all so into him. And Gojo is very into her, but being kind of the shy, awkward dude that he is, doesn't think that, he really has a chance necessarily with this very incredibly attractive, popular girl, who's hanging out with him now. These kids are struggling. But I really like, as I said, even the kind of the love hotel situation wherein they're like brought face to face with their physical attraction for each other, shall we say, that they kind of just ignore and let go past. But there's everything about this series is just really cute as well. They go shopping and Marin's like, you need a new outfit, so, and all of them, don't look good on him, and she just thinks everything looks good on him because, again, she's super biased and super into him. And then, they go to the fireworks together. They're just, it's so stinking cute. There's when they watch horror movies together, and she gets too so scared that she ends up calling him, and they stay on the phone until they fall asleep so she doesn't feel afraid anymore. It's just man, it's just I like the relationship in this series a lot. I think I think they're just really likable teens who are trying to figure shit out, and who very obviously like each other and just need to get their act together, honestly. Dang it. But yeah, I would expect probably more people are reading this now thanks to the anime, which is a good thing because it's a fun rom-com with cosplay twist, and is a little bit on the, risque side, but never anything. I personally don't think it's overly gratuitous. I don't feel like, and the camera's really uncomfortably focused on the fan service element. It has its issues. I'm not going to say there's no problems or potential problematic elements in this series, but I think it's just overwhelmingly really sweet and lovely and fun and funny, and acknowledges teens having sexual attraction, which is always nice. Insofar as teens aren't these freaking chaste children who don't think about sex. They certainly do that, and it's just presented in a realistic way. And again, these poor kids are struggling. Just start dating, you two. I don't know what's taken you so long. But it's nice, and I think it's a really fun look at a kind of first serious relationship and friendship, and two people who are drawn together through interests in unusual passions, the mutual respect that they have for each other is really refreshing. The fact that they kind of become friends over their weird hobbies that other people don't really necessarily understand, but they accept in each other, especially Marin, who is kind of more this stereotypical popular girl. Her approach to people being passionate about stuff is really cool, is really nice to see, and she's I appreciate when a teenage girl, especially one who's shown as popular and has lots of friends and is pretty hot, isn't just a mean bitch. which is very often in media and like very often in real life, but obviously like people are nuanced and not every, you know, attractive, popular person is going to be a terrible personality. In fact, you don't become popular because you have a shit personality. So yeah, I think it's just really cute. Go read it. Next, we have volume 8 of The Witch and the Beast by Kosuke Satake. This wraps up the, I guess, vampire arc of this series. Oh, it's good. It's good. Yeah, bombastic ending to a interesting arc. A little bit different from some of the stuff we'd seen before, and I think brought a pretty ready resolution to this part of the story. I'm looking forward to the next part, whatever it may be. I just really enjoy this story, a dark fantasy with kind of a European setting twist to it. I'll be interested to see how it develops from here. This arc kind of introduced a lot of things that I think have the potential to be built on very readily. Godot is a really interesting character, and I think her getting closer to maybe a resolution to her situation is always nice to see. Nice to know that this won't be dragged out for 37 volumes. Yeah, no, it was very, very good. And I was waiting on this volume for a long time. It came out ages ago, but we only recently got copies here in Australia. So hopefully volume 9 will be with me sooner rather than later. But, you know, I don't actually know. All I can do is hope. Next, we have volume 16 of To Your Eternity by Yoshitoka Oima, the ongoing fantasy of a immortal being traveling through the ages, meeting people, and trying to save the world from this mysterious force, organism, something called the Knockers. It's very good. It has a lot of Oima's strong dramatic sense. It captures like these feelings of guilt and loss and you know, sadness, the inevitability of mortality very well. I personally think this is the better of Oima's two works. I appreciate A Silent Voice for what it is, but I do think this one is the better series. I can't speak to the anime adaptation. I haven't seen it. And I've heard mixed things, so I don't know if that's good or bad, but the manga is very good. It's one that I follow digitally through Crunchyroll. I think it's also on like Azuki and, you know, a whole bunch of these digital manga platforms. But yeah, it's very good. If you haven't tried it, check it out either on one of those platforms or maybe through the anime. I don't know. If you like stories that may sometimes verge on the edge of melodrama, then this is worth a look at least. It's very good and I enjoy it quite a bit. The ongoing like standard trim size stuff. First up, we have volume 8 of Mob Psycho 100. This is officially the halfway point for this series. I love this series. It's fantastically balanced with its comedy and drama. Just overall really, really wonderful coming-of-age story about a really likable cast, despite some of them being not necessarily the most upstanding people. Yeah, it's my favorite of One's work. I say this every time I get a new volume. It's definitely, I don't know, like One Punch Man is obviously the more popular of one's series, but I find this one not only funnier, but more emotionally genuine, more just generally well done. I think one's art really elevates the story. I know that's something people complain about, and that's the whole reason One Punch Man has its more polished manga adaptation. But I think there's just something very genuine, very true, very affecting with this particular story, and having one in charge of like every aspect of it makes it that much better. And it's not to put down One Punch Man. I haven't read One Punch Man in several years at this point, so I cannot speak to the quality of it. But Mob Psycho 100 just continues to be fantastic, and I'm glad that we are seeing a somewhat consistent release from Dark Horse. It does give me more confidence in that we will see this series end sooner rather than later, hopefully. Art book earlier, but this is volume 13 of Ida Iro's Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. This is one of my favorite ongoing series. I just adore the kind of spooky, fun, creepy atmosphere with that does honestly really hit you with some emotional gut punches. It's overwhelmingly fantastic. The characters are great, the conflicts are great. I think the mix of like human and inhuman characters is done really well, and it really puts an emphasis on kind of the ups and downs of relationships, especially when considering like the differences in morality and lifespans and things like that. When we do consider like any relationship, but also like this more inhuman companionship with humanity, which longtime viewers know I'm a big yokai fan. I'm a big fan of anything regarding like human supernatural relationships. In saying that, I'm not really a fan of a lot of the supernatural romance series around. I do tend to prefer my yokai stuff to edge on the creepy. But Toilet Bound Hanako-kun is just really, really wonderful. I've said it before, but don't be put off by the name. It's a reference to the Toilet Bound Hanako-san kind of urban legend that is very ubiquitous in Japan, of the ghost of a little girl who grants wishes, and who just so happens to be found in girls' bathrooms. But in this particular series, Hanako is a boy, so it's Hanako-kun. Really, really wonderful. Check it out if you haven't. I also recommend the anime adaptation. It's very, very good. It's not a one-to-one adaptation, but I think it's a really solid adaptation of some really strong story arcs, and shows off some of the best parts of this series, and is a great jumping off point as well if you want to try that and then get into the manga. So yeah, we are slowly catching up with the Japanese release. I think there's 16 or 17 volumes maybe now in Japanese, so only a couple more before we've completely bridged the gap, and then we're going to have to wait a long time for each new volume, unfortunately, like the rest of the world. Some of Viz's shoujo titles, we have Rei Toma's The King's Beast by volume 6. This is an ongoing fantasy story set in the same universe as Toma's Dawn of the Arcana, wherein our main character is a Ajin, which is sort of a humanoid species. They look like people, but they have animal ears and tails and exorbitant strength and things like that. And whilst Dawn of the Arcana was a more European setting, this is a more Asian royalty setting. So there's the differences in that. As I said, it's set in the same universe, but there's no real crossover aside from like just the social structures. And similarly to Dawn of the Arcana, Ajin are typically seen as like this slave or warrior class. And more specifically, in The King's Beast, women or female Ajin are regarded as just like sex workers. They typically are put into prostitution at a very young age, and that's really their only option. But for our main character, Rengetsu, she decides to, in a Mulan-esque turn of events, pretend to be a boy in order to infiltrate the castle, in order to find out who was responsible for the murder of her twin brother, who in their childhood was a guard for one of the royal princes there, and was brutally murdered. So Rengetsu has decided to, try to figure out what happened by becoming this a bodyguard for the same prince. I will say, just as a content warning for this particular volume, there is some very dubious like sexual assaults in here. More specifically, our main character is affected by like some sort of drug that like induces heat, or induces like is like an aphrodisiac basically, and so she is very affected by this. And then there is some very like overt and in your face near sexual assault from one of the other princes, who is the one who's like uncovering the secret that she is a girl. It's wrapped up and nothing like actually happens, quote unquote, but it is like, it's very, very on the line. I can absolutely understand if people are uncomfortable with that, and I don't think that it's necessarily handled after the fact as well as it could be. But of course, that is up to every individual's like mileage and to how much you can handle, and whether or not that will personally affect you or personally impact the enjoyment that you get within the series. I just like I don't have an issue with it. I think it is utilized in the story enough that I don't think that it was necessary inherently, but I don't think it's made this like a do not read for me. But obviously I have higher tolerances than a lot of people. And I do just want to give a warning for that, as I try to always do when it comes to these sorts of topics. And it is only a chapter, if that, of kind of early in this particular book. If you're like a BL fan and you've weathered the stormy seas of what that genre can present, then I think you'll probably be fine. But as I said, I do like to always give warning. But yes, it was something that I think wasn't inherently like something I would expect from this series, so I just wanted to make sure that it was all very clear about what was happening and who was doing what. But yes, The King's Beast, it's still ongoing in Japanese. I think there's 7 or 8 volumes out, so we're almost caught up. And it is one that I do look forward to. I do like the series a lot. I liked Ray Thomas' previous works, Dawn of the Arcana a little bit more than The Water Dragon's Bride. But I think this particular series is strong, like her strongest work, and I will say that despite it occurring in the same universe as Dawn of the Arcana, it is standalone, so you don't have to read that to enjoy this one. So keep that in mind as well. Next, we have another shoujo from Viz, although this is not from their Shoujo Beat line. This is volume 15 of Requiem of the Rose King by Ayakano. There is 17 volumes of this, so we are getting very close to the end. This is a retelling of the War of the Roses, and more specifically, Richard III's life. Most notably, kind of the Shakespearean interpretation of Richard, and as well as Henry VI, and all of this skirmish between England and the royal families, and, you know, political drama. If you know anything about like the actual historical Richard III, you will know that he's very, very infamous, definitely seen as a tyrant. Most notable for having murdered his 2 young nephews in order to, you know, gain the throne. Allegedly murdered his nephews. Anyway. This is very much a revisionary tale. It paints Richard as much more sympathetic. That's not to say that he's necessarily a good person, or that like he's just some martyr, but he isn't like the dastardly villain of history that is the reality. I find this kind of political drama so interesting. I do enjoy kind of historical fiction and historical revisionism and what if scenarios. Richard III has been very redeemed over the centuries, most notably by Shakespeare, so I'm not gonna say that Ayakano is like at the forefront of changing his image and changing how the public perceives him, because that's been an ongoing thing. And of course, as with every political figure and historical figure, there is nuance to like who they are and their responsibilities, and, you know, what the age was. And that's not a excuse, but it can be an explanation, and obviously nuance can be forgotten when we look back on history. So I do have really no issues with kind of this fantastical revisionism of real life people, especially like someone so far removed from modern age as King Richard III. Like, this isn't the same as like Hitler, right? Wherein people are still alive who lived through the atrocities that he commit against millions of people. Richard reigned a long time ago. Most negatively impacted like people directly around him, and so there's a little bit more nuance there as well. Anyway, regardless, I do really enjoy the series. I've liked it for a very long time. It does have a new anime. Haven't seen any of it, cannot speak to it or its quality, but if you are watching the anime and enjoying it, or at least like it has your interest enough, and maybe you want to see more or to see how it ends, I would recommend you try the manga. It is very, very good, and just very, very focused on all of the political scheming and, you know, backwards and forwards between groups, and the conflict between Richard and his morals and his want for or his hope for strong leadership, and how that can really corrupt people. And then of course like his relationship with other people, notably his brothers, his father, his mother, King Henry VI. There's a lot going on, and I don't know where this is gonna end up. I have the presumption that it will be a tragic ending, because Richard didn't have a happy life in real life. Shakespearean Richard III is the play is a tragedy. That tends to be the case with this kind of figure. So I'm not expecting a happily ever after for for Richard here, despite him being a much more, as I said, interesting and probably apologetic or understanding figure compared to his real life counterpart. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this, and I'm looking forward to getting the rest of it. I actually probably won't read this until I get the last 2 volumes, so I can just binge it all at once, because that's what I like to do when I know that a series is wrapping up. For the quote-unquote general manga, we have Kageki Shoujo Volume 5 by Kumiko Saiki. This has been put out by 7 Seas. This is the ongoing series of a girl who is wanting or training and wanting to join the Takarazuka, which is the all-female acting troupe of Japan. I mean, there's several troupes, but it's kind of the all-female acting industry there. It's a very interesting look. I really appreciate how this series is written. I love so many of the girls, and I appreciate how nuanced a lot of the perspectives on like talent and fame and the impact of those things, and like extreme rigidity and expectations on young women impacts their mental health and their physical health and all these sorts of things, and the competitive nature of these industries that are very focused on young women, how they look, how they act, their personal talents. It's really, really good. I think we're quite behind insofar as, like, I think there's 12 or 13 volumes of this out in Japanese so far, so we have plenty more volumes until we catch up. There's also a kind of prequel slash soft, I mean, this is the soft reboot. There's sort of a prequel alternate version of the series just called Kageki Shoujo Curtain Rises, which I would encourage you to read before this one. It's very, very good. I am not the most informed person when it comes to Takarazuka. I rely on my good dear friend Ray, Whimsical Pictures, for that, because she just knows all about it. She has definitely kind of fallen down the rabbit hole of Takarazuka over the last year and a half. And so all of my dumb, stupid questions that I have, she is very willing to teach me everything that I may need to know about what this is, and like its impact on Japanese culture and its fans and all sorts of things. So yeah, it's really good. This is another one with an anime adaptation, another one that I haven't seen, but I've heard pretty good things about the anime from this one, so I would encourage you to watch that if you're an anime watcher, and maybe again that might be a good starting point, and increase your interest in reading it. Yeah, the cast is wonderful. I think our main character is just really, really likable and sympathetic, empathetic. I just think it's very, very well done, and even for me, who's not like the most informed person on this subject, I think there's a lot to enjoy. You do learn quite a bit, and it's just a really interesting look into something that is pretty fundamentally Japanese, although it's more of a modern culture, especially compared to like kabuki. It is something that you don't see, like, it's something that exists uniquely within Japan, and that we don't really have too much comparable to outside in the wider audience, or the Western audience more specifically. I may be wrong, please inform me if I am. But yeah, Kageki Shoujo is very, very good regardless of all of those things, and I would encourage you to try it if you have not. Now we have BL manga, the first one being Volume 5 of Sasaki and Miyano by Sho Harusono. Technically, well, it's a shoujo manga as well, and we recently got the spin-off series for this licensed, which is a really good thing. This is a sweet story of two high school students, one who's like a closeted fudanshi, and the other who's his upperclassman, his senpai, who has like a big fat crush on him and slowly gets closer to him by like asking about his interest in BL, and then them becoming friends, and maybe their feelings developing into more. It's very sweet, very cute, very saccharine. It's one of those just heartwarming school love stories. A very slow burn, if that bothers you. But this one had a very popular anime. Again, one that I haven't seen yet. It is on the list to watch. Almost everything called anime that I've mentioned is on my to watch list, just by the way. Except for Mob Psycho. I've already seen that one. But this was kind of a breakout hit. A lot of very positive reviews and feedback, and just a lot of people really seem to enjoy it, which is really great because it is a wonderful series. Really happy that Yen Press has been putting this one out, and I really look forward to reading the spin-off once we get it in print. Next, the other BL that I got this month is Volume 4 of Cherry Magic by Yu Toyota, or Cherry Magic, 30 Years of Virginity Can Make You a Wizard. This is, I think it's still ongoing. It might be finished. It started as a webcomic, or like a Twitter comic, which gained like huge popularity. And this is the story about two salarymen. One who, as he turned 30 and was a virgin at that point, so he gained this power to read the minds of anyone that he's touching, which is not, like, he's not very happy about. And then he discovers that, like, the super cool, handsome, accomplished co-worker that he has at work, obviously, is just, like, absolutely smitten with him. He has the biggest, fattest crush on him, which confuses him because he's kind of this, you know, I don't want to say antisocial, but like, he's a 30-year-old virgin. He doesn't really have a lot of experience with like other people. He doesn't have a huge group of friends. Obviously hasn't had a girlfriend thus far. And so he's very confused as to why like this really popular, handsome guy is interested in him at all. But over the course of the series, you slowly see them getting closer, and then at the end of the last volume, our main character confessed his feelings of like mutual romantic interest to this other guy. And so this book is notably like their first date, which doesn't go too well, but then sort of like follow up outings and dates and things like that. It's very, very sweet. There's at least 10 volumes. I want to say like volume 10 is the last one, because I feel like it is the last one, but then I also feel like sometimes I see more chapters of this coming out, because I follow the creator on the mangaka on Twitter. So I still see them posting comics every so often, so maybe it's still ongoing. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But this is 10 or so volumes out in Japanese, and it's just super duper sweet. again, another one that, like, maybe don't judge by the title, because the title, like, doesn't necessarily give the best first impression, but I will say that this is, especially for, like, ongoing BL titles, it's just absolutely so heartwarming, so cute. It has a really wonderful drama as well. I haven't seen it. Again, I don't have time to watch a lot of stuff. I'm sorry. But everyone I know who's seen it loves it. So give it a watch if that's your thing. We have light novels, and oh my goodness, we have a lot. First up is Ascendance of a Bookworm. I Do Anything to Become a Librarian, Part 3, Volume 5, by Miya Kazuki and illustrations by Yoshina. This is a ongoing, well, I think the web novel is complete, but it's an ongoing isekai, female-focused isekai about a young woman who, after being smothered by a collapsing shelf of books in her original life, wakes up in the body of a sickly child in this new fantasy world that she's trying to coordinate. And although she is a huge book lover, she has found herself in a place, in a world, in a society where reading really isn't available for most people. The literacy rate is very, very low, and books and the printing press and all of that just doesn't really. Books exist, but only for the uber wealthy. I really, really enjoy the series. This has also had a very popular anime adaptation. I haven't seen season 3, but I have seen the rest of it. I really enjoy this series. It's one of my only favorite isekai that I follow on a regular basis. This is the complete arc of the adopted daughter of an archduke, which follows on directly from the previous arc. And our main character, or Rosemine now, finds herself in a very different situation than what she did when she first woke up. It's a series that really keeps you on your toes in regards to expectations. It's hard to know where the story will go, but it continues to get better and better. I think it's a series with very organic growth, not only for the protagonist, but for the world that she occupies, and her slow changing of social norms. It's really good. I encourage you to try it, either again through the anime or through J Novel's digital release or print release. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite, like, ongoing titles from J Novel Club. Certainly one of my favorite in print that they do. I'm hoping that we get some more of their titles in print, just quietly, by the way. J Novel, I would pay lots of money for some of your books to be on my shelf. But this one is, like, long. It's long, and every arc gets longer than the previous. And I think there's 8 arcs in all. There's something like 20 something volumes of the Japanese release, and I'm not entirely sure that the full series has gotten like a print volume release in Japan, so it might be 30 something volumes by the end of it. I kind of don't care because it is that good, and I do encourage you to try it. Obviously, like, when I talk about light novels, isekai isn't typically my favorite genre of stuff, but I do think there are some good ones out there, and this one is certainly one of them. Check it out. I don't remember if I showed one of these off last time, but we have, if not, I'm just gonna put it in here. We have volume 2 and 3 of The Haunted Bookstore, Gateway to a Parallel Universe by Shinobu Maru. This is a completed light novel. There's only 6 volumes in Japan, about a human girl who was raised by a yokai. She runs a bookshop and shares and trades stories with various yokai over the course of the series. in addition to that, we also have a young ex exorcist. He comes from a very prestigious exorcism family, but over the course of the first book decided to leave that kind of behind him, and he is also a human in his late teens, and he's sort of now living in the supernatural world, or the yokai world, whatever you want to call it, and has this kind of slow burn relationship with our main character, who's a couple years younger than her, but it's namely about the relationships between these two human characters and the various yokai. For our main character, the relationships of like family and friends and neighbors that she's had throughout her whole life, and then this exorcist kind of being the fish out of water, learning more and more about like these tenuous relationships that he's up until this point disregarded, because obviously exorcists are in the business of getting rid of yokai. So, never having valued yokai as like sentient beings in that sort of sense. But then the relationship of these two human characters to each other, especially as one is kind of almost completely divorced from the human world, and then one who's almost completely divorced and slowly learning more about this yokai world. It's very, very good. This series, like the larger ongoing story is really solid, but then there'll be really resonant, hugely emotional kind of side stories interwoven, and some of the best things are some of these smaller, more dramatic, emotional interludes. The first volume was the story of two cicada siblings and their friendship with our human main character. I haven't read volume 3 yet, so I can't speak to that one, but in volume 2 we have our exorcist character caring for this ghostly spirit before it passed on, and so the conflict he felt about it, and reflecting on his own regrets in regards to his waning relationship with his mother before her death. It's really good. It's really good. And at 6 volumes, this is the halfway point with volume 3. It's not hugely long. It's not a big commitment compared to the Sentence of a Bookworm or a lot of other titles. And I do look forward to whenever we get a new volume of this from Airship. We have one of my favorite ongoing light novels, Bakano, volume 19. This is the most recent one. This is 1935B, Dr. Feelgreed, written by Ryogo Narita. This is a follow-up from the previous volume, wherein a lot of our main characters from this 1930s timeline, as well as the mortal characters who also pop up in the 1930s timeline, are in this main storyline. We see so many familiar faces converging, and so this is the continuation of that, wherein not only are these like various mafia and other like criminal groups within New York are happening and converging, and then we have the Immortals and they're doing things, and then we have the wider like US government things are happening there. It really, really feels like the 1930s storyline is wrapping up, is completing, and then all we have is the kind of quote unquote modern day, the 2007 timeline, 2000s timeline, I should say, which acts kind of like a epilogue to not only the 1930s storyline, but the 1700s storylines of our initial immortal characters. If you don't know anything about Baccano, oh my goodness, you're missing out. Fantastic anime adaptation. The light novels are so good. This is the same creator as Durarara. I would say it's the better of those series. He also has a couple other non-licensed titles like Vamp, but Narita has also done like the new Bleach light novels are from Narita. There's some other stuff that he's done as well, but we've gotten quite a bit of his work. I want Vamp. Please, publishers, give me Vamp. But Baccano, I think, is far and away his best work. I love it with the Fire of 1,000 Suns. It's the story of Prohibition era and post-Prohibition era New York, or USA kind of in general. Most of it is New York, but we also have some interludes in Chicago and California. Most notably Alcatraz. And then also like Italy, because we have, it's the story of like these immortal people, alchemists, who in 1715 summoned a demon on the ship whilst they were on the way to the New World, aka the USA. This group of Italian alchemists who summon this demon, and in order to do that, or in doing that, I should say, not in order to do that, in doing that, they gain immortality, this liquor that gives them immortal life. They never age, they can never die, except for if they are quote-unquote eaten by another immortal, which causes a whole bunch of stuff to happen on this ship. Not everyone ends up making it to the shores of the US, just putting it mildly. But those who do kind of go their separate ways, have splintered off into various groups. They weren't really a cohesive group of people to begin with. They weren't all friends and co-workers and stuff. So it really makes sense that after having achieved this amazing thing and also not exactly trusting each other, they've just gone their separate ways. Anyway, hard cut to 300 years later. It is Prohibition era New York. And some of our immortals are noodling around, most notably Maiza, who is working for this particular group, and through some shenanigans, various members of the criminal underworld, who are our main characters, or also main characters. If you know Naruto's writing, there's about 27 main characters in every book. But through some shenanigans, several of these New York, criminals also gain immortality, true immortality, which means that they can never die. There's also like a failed immortal liquor that does allow you to age, but you'll never get sick or hurt or anything, but you will die eventually of old age. So that's fun. And so that's what, like, this storyline is happening. We have so many immortal people, but then we also have a lot of people who are not immortal, and are just kind of crazy and out there and wild in their own way, which is totally fine. That makes it more fun. And then there's later storylines, again, featuring a lot of the original immortal characters looking for each other and trying to, reconvene almost. In a snapshot of a lot of these characters' lives 70 years down the line. Anyway, this, as I said, feels like the finale, like the real resounding ending for the 1930s arc, which is good. I know that Baccano, the Japanese releases, have been on hold for a long time. It's not a series that Naruto has revisited much recently, which is kind of a shame. But I do know that it is also kind of at the end of its publication. There's fans who have been following it either through Japanese or like fan translation releases have said that it's pretty much wrapped up. There's just some like current day epilogue stuff that could be done to wrap it all up, which I presume is what will happen. And I hope that it, like, this extended hiatus from the series from Naruto means that he's just preparing everything to wrap it up with a bang. Yeah, I love Baccano. I really recommend the anime, although it's quite hard to find nowadays. The DVDs from Funimation are very out of print. And the Blu-ray set from Aniplex is quite hard to find. But if you are desperate, it's also not streaming anywhere, I don't think. But if you are desperate, then you can buy the Japanese Blu-ray release, which does have the dub and English subtitles. It's obviously a bit more expensive than like the Funimation DVD would have been when it came out. But I think it's pretty comparable to what the Aniplex release was. You can probably also find like secondhand copies for much cheaper than the retail price. Regardless, check out the anime, check out the novels, they're very good. I also would say that compared to the Durarara novels, which I've also read, the character voices are a lot clearer in this series. I'd also say the cast, in all their weird wonderfulness, is much more entertaining and likable. Even though like half of them are murderous criminals, I just love them like a whole bunch. And it's a cooler and more interesting setting than just like modern day Tokyo, in comparison to Durarara. So yeah, check it out if you haven't. It's very, very good. I have a Danmai, one that I haven't even opened yet, although it is on my pile to get to like much sooner than later. This is Little Mushroom by Shisi, with translation by Zhao. Book 1 Judgment Day. This is a 400-page print edition of the web novel, like my Danmai. This is put out by Peach Flower House, and the second volume has like just recently gone on pre-order. That's the second half of the series or story, I believe. I think it's finished in 2. This is a really, really popular, well-received sci-fi Danmai series. For those who don't know Danmai, it's like it's the Chinese equivalent of like BL. It's a, you know, a male romance story novel, and I really know nothing about this at all. I couldn't tell you one single thing, and I'm a terrible YouTuber because I didn't even look it up. We shall read the blurb. Until the day humanity falls. So, in the year 2020, Earth's magnetic poles disappeared, and humankind was nearly wiped out by cosmic radiation. Oh dear. Within the span of 100 years, living creatures began to mutate and devour each other, while the remaining humans, numbering in the tens of thousands, struggled bitterly in their man-made bases. In the abyss, home to the mutated xenogenics, there lived a sentient little mushroom. Because it had been nourished by the blood and flesh of the deceased human Anze. Oh, Anzi? Not only did it take on a similar looking human form, but a similar name as well. Ange. I think. Apologies. My Mandarin is just terrible, so apologies. Ange is determined to go to the human base to search for his spore, which had been harvested by humans. Once there, however, he faces the omnipresent risk of discovery and certain death as he tries to keep his non-human nature hidden from the judges, whose responsibility is to inspect for and eliminate xenogenics like himself. And of all the judges, Colonel Lu Feng is the most perceptive and merciless. As soon as he determines that someone's xenogenic, he will execute that person on the spot. But Ange's mutation goes undetected by Lu Feng's eyes, and so a tale of humans and xenogenics unfolds. So yeah, it's one that I'd heard really good things about. It's one that's kind of very well received and regarded in the wider Danmai community. I've said this before, I'm not like super into a lot of the just general fandom for Danmai. I kind of just follow what's been published and licensed. And so I am following obviously Seven Seas' various Danmai releases, but also Peach Flower House and Violacti, although they haven't actually put out a book yet. Please give me my books. They seem to be struggling. I hope the best for them. But this is the other publisher that I do actually have a previous work from. Whenever, like, again, I'm not really familiar with what's popular and what people like, and I see memes and art and stuff, but I don't actually follow fan translations or anything for a lot of these web novels, so I just kind of trust that everyone, like, these publishers kind of are giving people things that they want, and I will try them. We know me. I'm very willing to jump straight in and enjoy things. And I am very much looking forward to this. The other, like, In the Dark from this publisher was kind of a crime mystery series, and I do appreciate that, at least so far, Peach Flower House has been focused a little less on, like, cultivation stories, although some of their upcoming releases, I believe, are, like, cultivation set, which I, again, will be buying because people are, like, super excited about that. I don't know anything about it, but I don't know, I'll get to it. I will buy my copies. But yeah, it seems that it's nice to see, like, from the get-go, within Danmai, we're seeing more than just, like, the expected cultivation stuff, because it's good to have diverse stories and genres. I have some comics. One that I got them together. They're from the same publisher, but one is like a final reprint. So the one that I was actually, like, backing the Kickstarter for is A Frog in the Fall and Later On. This is a beautiful, beautiful horizontal comic book. It has this slip case. Let me just take it off and I can show you exactly what the book looks like. Here we go. This is by Linnea Certe and published by Piao Studios. So, you know, this is a story of just a little frog in the fall, and it's absolutely beautiful, fantastic comic. Definitely one that I was happy to back, especially considering that this publisher doesn't actually exist anymore. I don't think they're putting out any more new books. It's open binding, like so, but it just is absolutely gorgeous, very well put together. And as part of this Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign, I also got a reprint copy of Stages of Rot by Linnea Certe. So same artist, creator, comics person, and from the same publisher. Absolutely gorgeous. This is a comic that I had wanted to get, but it went out of print quite quickly. So I was really happy to get a copy through this finally. And again, one that I would highly encourage you to pick up because it is just beautiful. Really, really wonderful, wonderful look at, like, the organic nature of living and how the world and lives are all interwoven and interconnected. It's very good. Very much like not exactly the most approachable of comics necessarily, but just so beautifully artful. I would highly recommend either of these to those who do like indie comics and alternative comics and individual comics artists supporting smaller artists, or those that aren't necessarily based on big franchisers, anything like that, and isn't exactly like the most mainstream of publishers, so much so that unfortunately we aren't getting any more from this publisher to my knowledge. But just two really beautiful books. I highly encourage you to hunt down your own copies if you are so inclined. Everything for this month, quite a few books and other things. Man oh man, it has been a full month. Definitely boosted by that Arya, and not a huge amount of is mostly just like catching up with titles. I had got a lot of merchandise and things serendipitously this month. A couple art books, a couple comics, lots of novels. I got a lot of reading to do because I don't like to have things unread if a new volume has just come out. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, feelings, opinions on anything that I talked about today. Are you following these series? Is there some things that you've never even heard of? Let me know your thoughts on some of the one-shots that I got, or some of the completed series. Have you been following some of these smaller publishers? Have you been following some of these indie comics? Let me know. I love reading your comments. I do try to reply to as many as I can. Even if I don't reply, I do read them and really appreciate them. As always, if you liked this video, I would appreciate a subscribe, but don't feel obligated. But if you can't get enough of me, you can also find me on Twitter at GEE _reads. I'm on there on a somewhat frequent basis, and I tweet a lot. You can also find me on the podcast that I co-host with my good friend Ray from Whimsical Pictures, where we talk about manga. Our most recent episode was about the shonen action series Nabari no O, which is from the wonderful mangaka Yuki Kamatani, most notably known now for Our Dreams at Dusk. So listen to our discussion, our thoughts, our feelings on that series. If that so interests you, you can find that on this channel here, or on all of the main platforms for podcasting. That's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Look after yourselves, stay kind, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.